name's Emma Mulholland, obviously. I'm a product manager at Shopkeep, previously at Allstate and Tesco and BT. Oh no, Tesco and Marks and Spencer's. Who in this room is working in some kind of agile methodology at the moment? Okay, this is like an introduction, so you guys probably know all this already, but who actually works with a product manager directly? Okay, and are they co-located, as in directly you work with them in the same place? Some nods, some not. Okay, so the reason I kind of wanted to do this talk is I've had two different experiences around product in Belfast. I'm really passionate about product. If you know me, you'll know this. And I've been in the pubs and stuff before with developers, and I start getting excited and like drawing diagrams, and they're kind of looking at me going, Jesus, Emma, no one gets that passionate about product. And that makes me a bit sad because I think you should get that passionate about product. But the other experience I've had is I've kind of had some developers get a little bit defensive or aggressive. I've had some slightly uncomfortable exchanges with people on Slack or in person. And that's because they haven't had the best experiences with product managers, or they've kind of been seen as someone to be the stick with. And generally that's someone who doesn't sit with them, it's someone that's far away. And that makes me sad as well. So I want to give everyone an idea of what product management is and why it's good and why developers should want to work that way, why we're your friend, as it were. Okay, so I've got a video to start because what do product managers do?
What you do within a tech is you take the specifications from the customers and you bring them down to the software engineers.
Yes, that's right.
Well, then I just have to ask, why couldn't the customers just take them directly to the software people? Huh?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because engineers are not good at dealing with customers.
So you physically take the specs from the customer?
Well, no, my secretary does that, or the fax.
So then you must physically bring them to the software people.
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, sometimes.
What would you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
Okay. So, yeah, the way those guys were looking at the end, that's sometimes how people look at me. It's like, oh, what exactly do you do? So I do have people skills, but my main argument today is that everyone has people skills. I think this is a bit disparaging towards what I do, which is more than just talk to customers, but also what engineers do, because engineers don't need to be protected from the customers. You guys have social skills too. Okay, so going to cover off what exactly do product people do, and I'm going to compare this to the old project world to kind of highlight the differences and to highlight what product and product theory is. Have a bit of a conversation around balanced teams and what success looks like in product. Okay, so old project world. This may still be the case for some people, in which case I'm very sad for you. But typically you would have a hippo, so the highest paid opinion, would want something shiny. They'd want it in like X time and for Y amount of money. So generally this was solution orientated. It didn't focus on a problem or a user. It was just like a thing. They wanted something shiny. And then this thing generally got articulated into like a shopping list of requirements and handed over to someone. There was a physical handover. And then this person would typically take this shopping list of requirements, opinions that have been gathered from stakeholders or a noisy customer, and then they'd pass it over to a developer. And the developer may not have even spoken to any of these people. There was no real mention of like the user or the problem or context. It was just, a list of things to be delivered. So then in contrast to this kind of shopping list of requirements, this project to be delivered. What is a product? So a product delivers user and business value by solving a problem. And a product mindset then is outcome-based product development using durable, passionate, cross-functional, co-located teams. I've highlighted certain words in green, and these form kind of the key concepts or principles behind product and product theory. They're the main things that contrast with waterfall methodologies or these old school project approaches. So when we speak about product, this Venn diagram gets brought up quite a lot. It's how product managers describe what they are, but I would put forward that it's actually what the whole team is. So the teams, it's this interface between the user, the business, and technology. And we use all of our skill sets to make sure that what we are creating is usable, viable, and feasible. So in the old world, the requirements, the functionality would often drive the technology and the development of the technology. But in this product world, there's a more holistic approach because the technology often drives the usability and the product itself. Everything becomes intertwined, and you need this balanced product team to create this product in a holistic approach. So I use the word balanced there. So we talk about balanced teams. So you need this cross-functional skill set that will cover off all these areas to create this product. These people need to sit together. At the minimum, you need the product manager or owner and developers. If you are building a UI, front-facing product, you generally, if you're lucky, get a product designer as well. But then you can have any other skills that you need to create the product because this team are self-organizing, they're empowered, and they can make decisions. So they need all these skills in the one place at the one time in order to be able to do that. Okay, so we know that we want to create something that's usable, that focuses on the customer problem, and that we have this balanced team. But actually, what's the steps we take to do this? Like, how do you actually go about creating this product? So essentially, we just make this big list of assumptions. We make assumptions about who the user is, what the problem is that they have, and the value that we're going to add by solving that problem. And then we come up with proposed solutions. And we go through a phase of running experiments, doing research to validate every single one of these assumptions. And as you go through this list of assumptions, and sometimes it is actually a physical list. You can write these all out in Post-it notes and you just rank them in order of risk and you go through them one by one. And as you validate them, you kind of move them across or invalidate them. And as you kind of gain more and more information, you become more and more confident in what it is that you're delivering. So you just repeat this over and over again and you make sure that you can measure everything so that everything is data-driven. And this step-by-step process that essentially happens over and over again, this is part of what we call the product lifecycle. So this product lifecycle is essentially split into half is discovery and framing and the other half is execution. What I would say, and the core part of my discussion today, is that developers don't sit in this little box called development. This balanced team, all these people are involved in every part of the product lifecycle. So everyone gets together at the beginning to align, so everyone has a shared understanding of the user, the goals, the problems. This is the core concept of how we deliver products as well, because we don't have these physical artifacts or these requirements that we hand off to each other. And then we go through this double diamond approach of discovery and framing. So the double diamond, the shape, the kind of how it's designed there, shows the convergent and divergent thought processes. So when we go through the problem discovery phase, we basically ideate. So we open out all of our thoughts around what the problem is. So all these assumptions about who our user is, what the problem is, like what value we may or may not be adding, we come up with as many pieces of information as we can, as many ideas and assumptions. And then we go through this process of validating them and bring them all down to a single point where we are confident enough to propose a solution that meets once we know who that user is and the value we're adding, and we come up with that problem, we come down to a single idea what that problem is that we're going to fix. And then you go through the process again where you ideate all your ideas around the solution that could possibly fix this problem. And again, you bring it back in so that you have a very defined idea of the problem and the solution. And then this is the point when you would have like a product kickoff and an inception and start pulling together your ideas about a roadmap. This isn't the stopping point though for discovery and framing. So discovery and framing will continuously happen. So although this is linear for like ease of display and understanding, discovery and framing is a continuous process. So you do a lot of it up front so that you have a solid idea of the product as you kick off. But then as you go through execution, you will continuously be doing discovery and framing 2 to 3 weeks out of each sprint. And again, product designers and developers and everyone are involved in all of that. Now, granted, 100% of a developer's time won't be spent at the discovery and framing phase, but they do need to be involved because, again, the technology will influence the solution. And even as human beings, everyone is creative and everyone can empathize with users. So we need the full team to input to this process. Okay, so we've kind of spoken about this kind of definition of product, and we know what we want to build. We want to understand our users and add something of value, and we have this team. But what specifically do the roles what do they do within the team? So as a product manager, we own the why. So we focus on the user problem. We drive the what, so we identify this value, and we also bring the business value into the concept. So we said earlier that from a business perspective, you're trying to understand the viability of a product. So that means that you need to understand the competitor landscape. That means you need to understand, does it support the business strategy? So is it viable from a business perspective? So we drive this, the solution so that it aligns to all of those business aspects. And we make fast decisions. As we are moving fast and iterating quickly, decisions get made quickly within the team. So you're not waiting on senior stakeholders or a hippo. We can make those decisions very quickly. And we prioritize work based on value. So we need to understand the value of everything we're doing. So everything needs to be quantified and measurable. This takes the opinions and the subjectivity out of product work. And it means that you can always understand the impact you're making and understand if what you've delivered is successful because you can measure it. And we communicate. I'm pausing because I'm about to curse, but I think it'll be okay. Product managers can often be seen as the shit umbrella. We're supposed to protect the development team from all the other shit in the ecosystem, and that's because we facilitate the communication in and out of the team. So we protect the development team so they're not getting harassed, although we facilitate them having discussions with other people if they want to. But we also communicate with all the other teams around us that help deliver a product successfully. So we work with our marketing colleagues, we work with our training and customer care departments, etc. In ShopKeep, we do continuous delivery, so we have to be very tightly in tight communication with our colleagues because we're putting things into production several times a week, and as soon as they go into production, then customers will ring up and start asking about it. So our customer care team need to be able to answer those questions, and we need to make sure that all our support documentation on the site and all of our product marketing documentation is up to date. So that communication is continuously going on. And then from a developer's point of view, if you have a product manager, then they should be empowering you to focus on new possibilities with this technology. So while the product manager owns the why and the context behind why you're doing things, and they drive that what, the technology side, the developers own the how. So they totally drive the solution, the technology underneath it, all of those decisions. The team are empowered to own those and drive those. And they input to the what of the product as well. Like I said earlier, the technology can drive the solution as much as the other way around. So the developers can also input into what the solution is and how that's going to meet the problems from the customers. All technology decisions are made by developers, and they manage and prioritize and ensure that we're continuously covering off tech debt. I am biased because I'm not technical, but it's often better if a product manager isn't technical because we shouldn't be getting involved in the technical solution of the product that is owned by the developers in the team. Sometimes if you do have a slightly more technical product manager, they can start trying to drive that, and that's not the job of a product manager at all. Okay, so what does success look like? We kind of looked very briefly at the beginning about this old project world versus this product world. So we can compare and contrast them again to understand like what is success in product world. So if you think about the scope, the concept of scope in old world versus new world, in project world, this is defined very early on and it's fixed. And having done this way of working in the past myself, I can also say that sometimes it's not necessarily the right thing. It comes from the hippo, you know, you can just be told what to deliver without actually it fully meeting user needs. In product world then, in contrast, you have ongoing prioritization because you're continuously running these experiments. You're continuously understanding value and therefore understanding what it is you should be working on. And from a success point of view, in project worlds, generally deployment of something was deemed successful as long as it was time and within budget. And not only deployment of something, just gates in general. So finishing a BRD was often seen as, you know, successful. And that doesn't really mean anything to a customer, it's just a document, you know, but you know, if you ticked a box, that's successful. Whereas in product world, KPIs, the tracking of them and actually, you know, them moving in the right direction, that's success. Team morale is success. User value is success. And getting that user value delivered, all of these are success metrics. Documentation. Again, in project world, it's often successful just to have all these different types of documents and all these tick boxes checked and, you know, all this stuff created, these tangible artifacts. In product world, we don't often focus on documentation. It's part of the Agile Manifesto that, you know, you should have working software over documentation. So we write user stories and we keep things as lean as possible. And communication. Again, in project world, formal meetings, status reporting, gatekeeping, etc. Versus product world, it's more working demos, working software, and regular Agile ceremonies, and just talking to each other. If you're co-located, you can actually just talk to the person sitting beside you. Okay. So main takeaways, the product manager is your friend. It's one team, it's not engineering delivering to product. This particularly is important to me because I often in the past have been told, oh, you know, you're this and we're this, and that is, well, quite isolating for a start. But it also is contradictory to this concept of a lean agile team and everyone being empowered and delivering together. And devs don't just dev. You should be involved at every single stage of the process. You should be inputting and understanding from the beginning, from the discovery and framing process. Fall in love with the problem. This sentence gets talked about a lot in product management. It's this concept of understanding the core needs and understanding the problems and falling in love with solving those, rather than getting too caught up into the concept of a specific app or a specific shiny thing, you know, that you think you need to deliver. It's making sure that you're always understanding the problem base and always understanding the value. If you don't understand why you're doing something and you can actually articulate the value that you're delivering, then there's something going wrong. And if your product manager isn't telling you what the problem is or what the value is that you're delivering, if they can't answer why when you're asking them, well, why are we doing this? Then again, there's something going wrong. So in short, we all have goddamn people skills. We all are creative. We can all input to, you know, we all can empathize. We can all understand kind of users, go and do some user research, and join in that discovery and framing process so that as a whole product team, we can create the product together. Okay, so if you are still interested, there are loads of resources on product management. These 3 books are really good starters for anyone trying to get into the area. Mind the Product is a global movement, for want of a better word. They run 2 workshops or 2 big conferences a year, one in San Francisco, one in London. The one in London is in October. We have Product Tank Belfast, which we try to run kind of 2 or 3 sessions a quarter. we will also be at Digital DNA, and we have got a code for tickets if anyone wants that for Digital DNA. Apart from that, Silicon Valley Product Group has absolutely loads of content on it. Marty Kagan, who wrote Inspired, he actually runs the Silicon Valley Product Group. And next Thursday is Product Camp Dublin. So if you wanted to kind of just, it's a half-day unconference and it's totally free if you want to go down and just listen to lots of different talks on product. Cool. Any questions? Yeah. Desi.
Hi, thank you. Very good talk. One question for me is, having worked with some agile teams, sometimes people say, oh, we're using agile, but we're not really, so it doesn't work as well as I ideally could. So my question would be, I think in the product life cycle, there was the 2 diamonds.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's just, they're diamonds. It's a double diamond approach. Oh, it's problem discovery and then solution framing.
Yeah, discovery and framing. I feel like when we try to do that in each iteration, we try, sometimes the challenge is, oh, we've already decided this last week, let's try not to change this. Do you find that that happens often? And if you don't, what do you think should be the approach so that we don't sort of assume, oh, we've already talked about this last week, let's try not to change it?
I think you only change things if you know categorically they're not working. So the discovery and framing, that phase, it's often when you do a lot of like prototyping and usability testing. So if you've got an idea and you can prototype it quickly and show it to a user, you'll know very quickly if it works or not. And so it's this whole concept of like having data and having evidence and driving decisions from that point of view rather than from opinions. So in that case, you'll have hard evidence. It'll be like, well, we've shown this to user and they didn't get it. So what's the point in developing this? You know, it's not going to work, as it were. But generally, also discovery and framing, it can be anywhere between 2 to 6 weeks. Tend to be the kind of usual timeframes. So a lot of the key risks and key assumptions will be validated at that point. And again, it'll be through actual evidence and testing and things like that. And then the discovery and framing you do just before each sprint is more almost like those prototyping elements, that user testing that you're doing with specific things that you're designing in that sprint. So you kind of have like, you definitely know who your user is from your 6-week DNF, but then, you know, does this box work here or here? Then that's the kind of level of decision making you're doing just before each sprint. So it's continuously going on, but there are different things that you're validating at each point. Is that answering your question? Kind of. There was another question there?
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm just curious. Like, I
Sorry.
understand how a product manager would work in a business that essentially does client work. But what about if you're just doing kind of your own in-house products, especially at smaller companies? I'm an indie game developer, so I'm just curious because, like, God, it would be nice to have somebody with people skills. Like, what role would a project manager? Would it be a different kind of role?
The role doesn't change depending on the size of the company. So, like I said, I've worked for Allstate, which is like hundreds of thousands of people, and then like Shopkeep, there's, I don't know, 60 or 70 of us or something. So it essentially doesn't change. Your product would change, so how the things you're doing with it would then change. So if you're talking about game development, I'm guessing you're still trying to do user testing or getting that kind of prototyping happening earlier on, because that's really expensive and you wouldn't want to develop a whole game and then the concept doesn't work. So you'd still be doing stuff like that.
Even if you're working in, so it seems like a lot of your role is to talk to clients and then communicate to developers and kind of create a bridge there.
Yeah.
What if you're not working for outside clients?
So you're still the bridge between the user of the product. So you don't necessarily have clients or senior stakeholders, especially if you're in a small place, but then you own the product. So basically what a product manager is trying to do is trying to say, how can I make this successful? And I can make this successful by making myself more confident, by getting people to try it out, by looking at the competition, etc. So I mightn't be talking to clients to get their opinions, but I'll just be doing that direct competitor research or user research, myself.
Okay. So it's a little bit, in that kind of a term, it sounds like it will be a little bit more like PR, marketing, research kind of, not necessarily.
Yeah, almost. It's that combination of the
Software.
user and the
Yeah.
business side. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
So, as a product manager, if you're working with a remote team, what
Yes.
behaviours would you be looking for from that remote team to help that process relationship work?
Yeah, that's difficult because that's one of the things you're advised not to do. But I have also been in the position where I've had to do it before. I've had teams in India or teams in America. Generally, you're trying to replicate the feeling of all sitting together as much as possible, which means doing lots of video calls, doing stand-ups on video hangouts, things like that. I know that some teams in Allstate actually had like videos on all day, so they could actually see each other all day, and they could just like talk anytime they needed. You're trying to basically keep the psychological safety high by ensuring that everyone still trusts each other and you still have that transparency and that ease of communication, so that even if you're just digitally poking someone, that's kind of, you know, if you can make that happen as much as possible, so it's just as easy as if you physically poke someone. You still need to keep the agile ceremonies happening, so you still have to do stand-ups, retros, you know, sprint planning, all of that stuff still has to happen. You just have to try and use tools to allow the collaboration, you know, such as Trello or video hangouts. But yeah, don't do anything separately and then relay what the output to the other team. You still have to keep that happening together. Cool. Any other questions? I think that's time up anyway.
A couple more minutes if you have any more questions.
You feel like that was.
Yeah. Oh, what was it?
How do you get more good product managers? I think that's one of the challenges right now. It's a title, it's a role in the industry,
Yeah.
but quite a few people have fallen into it from their old role, as opposed to people that have a passion for it.
Yes.
That have it.
Yeah, and actually, I think a bad product manager is worse than having no product manager, to be perfectly honest, because it's really demotivating and demoralizing, and it's just shit if you have a shit product manager. How do you get good product managers? I think if product managers, it's very hard to understand it unless you actually live it or shadow someone, or so it's probably more about trying to get in contact with other product managers and build up the community and the understanding, which we're trying to do with Product Tank. Apart from that, there are courses that are now starting to be run. Mind the Product do them. Apart from that, it is very, very difficult. It's not even just product managers, it's Scrum Masters. I know of other people who have had bad experiences with Scrum Masters, and if you get a good Scrum Master, it's amazing. But again, if you get a bad Scrum Master, it's heartbreaking, because it's very hard to live agile. You know, it's very easy to say it and to think it, but actually living it, actually being flat and removing ego, because no matter how many times you say, yeah, we're flat, almost everyone wants to try and control the team or lead the team, and you don't do that. And even I struggled with that for years and have, you know, had to learn to like go, no, this is, you know, it's hard. That didn't answer the question, sorry, but
I understand, nobody can answer it.
yeah, it's hard not to be a dick, to be honest. That's basically it. Oh, the other thing I would say, if you are interested in product, there's 2 more talks, I think, that are going to be in this room. So Steve Limmer's doing Modern Agile and Psychological Safety, and there are 2 ladies from Liberty who are actually doing discovery and framing. So there's a whole talk on discovery and framing at the very end of the day in here. And I think they've got some really good examples of that, actually. So.